So that covers the on-premise scenario. What about organizations that have already committed to hyperscalers like AWS? How does Clutch fit there?
There's another school of thought, so to say, and those are the ones who have already tied with hyperscalers deeply and continue to do so. So in the global market, the Amazon all-in or Azure all-in or GCP all-in or AliCloud all-in strategies, they are still very popular, and that market is globally seen even bigger than the on-prem market. I mean, that's no surprise. And so we actually don't see the that's quite interesting. We don't see that Kubernetes, for example, has a very tight integration with other Amazon tools. I mean, you can have a network integration, you can have RDS instances and so on, but creating those RDS instances declaratively, allowing developers that local on-demand self-service, just writing a Kubernetes YAML, applying it, and there's your RDS instance ready to be consumed from your app. It's just not there. So we've seen that there's a huge demand for having EKS clusters and then, addressing data service automation using AWS data services for that matter in an elegant way. Well, people started to use Crossplane again. Install Crossplane to your local EKS cluster and address RDS, and that works. However, if you're looking at larger enterprises where platform teams build, developer experiences, and in the end you have hundreds or thousands of Kubernetes clusters, this system breaks down. You need to have a central control plane then. And again, the application clusters need lightweight extensions to expose data service automation. And we are back in the Clutch territory. So in the anynines hub for AWS, we actually take this approach, and we have seen a recurring pattern here. So most of the large enterprises are using the well-architected framework. And with that, there come best practices on how you use Amazon accounts, for example, to separate larger tenants in your organization. There's a particular way on how EKS clusters are kept in one account and how data service instances like RDS or S3 buckets or whatnot are located in other special service accounts, where that's an AWS account where all the service instances go. And you repeat that pair of AWS accounts per tenant. So in the end, you're looking at hundreds of AWS accounts, and people would love to create RDS instances from those Kubernetes clusters spanning those AWS accounts, while the platform team needs to maintain an overview on where has been used what. And as long as you use only RDS instances or only AWS resources, AWS billing can be used, to tag your stuff and, get some billing information. But when you start to expose internally developed services or, other enterprise databases, the central policy and central governance breaks down. So this is where Clutch becomes very important. So we postulate that per region, one Clutch control plane is installed. It uses lightweight extensions in the application clusters, and it can orchestrate the creation of service instances such as RDS across a lot of AWS accounts. So we introduced a tenant notion into the latest version of Clutch and anynines hub. So you can declare such a tenant. It becomes aware of the AWS accounts that go with that tenant. And that when a user from an EKS cluster provisions a service, Clutch knows it, delegates it back, assumes roles of that tenant, and creates the service instance where it belongs. While the control, the central control for the platform team is given, and they can always ask, hey, tell me, where are the application clusters and what data service instances does this particular application cluster use? And then clients are free to use open source Clutch that's always part of anynines hub and integrate their own backends and expose them across all those application clusters as well. So we're really focused on making that fly. It's in the making for a while. We provide automation integration with RDS and S3 for now. Others are to follow, which means you install Clutch, you install your application cluster, a plugin from Clutch, and you can right away create service instances as if you were on Cloud Foundry. Well, just natively with Kubernetes means. So things come together, and we see as a target that we aim to serve medium-sized or small-sized clients with a couple of Kubernetes clusters, but also enterprises with hundreds or thousands of clusters. If you want to use Amazon services exclusively, there you go. You want to use the AWS, your own services or anynines data service, just add them to the mix. It's a modular framework. And so that's basically, in a nutshell, what has been happening at anynines.